Hi everyone, Christian from Koenigsegg here. I'm very excited to show you all the pre-production Koenigsegg Jesko.
The Bugatti CEO cries and resigns. After finally speaks up about Koenigsegg. This shocking development comes amid an intense rivalry between two titans of the hypercar world. The tension between these hypercar manufacturers has reached a breaking point, leading to an unprecedented emotional response and subsequent resignation from Bugatti's leadership. How true is that? We'll be finding out soon. In this video, we'll be examining the events that triggered this dramatic development, the history of this fierce competition, and what it means for the future of hypercars. Come along. The rivalry between Bugatti and Koenigsegg. Let's talk about one of the most exciting, nerve-rattling rivalries in the car world, like not your everyday whose exhaust is louder type of feud, but a full-blown clash of titans kind of battle that's been brewing since the early 2000s. You know how some people argue over iPhones and Androids? Or Coke versus Pepsi? Yes, this is kind of like that, but on four wheels, dripping in carbon fiber, and roaring at over 1,000 horsepower. It's the ultimate face-off between two hypercar powerhouses, Bugatti and Koenigsegg. And let me tell you, this rivalry runs deeper than just numbers on a speedometer. It's personal, it's philosophical, and it's deliciously intense. Did the CEO of Bugatti really cry on camera and then walk away from the company right after mentioning Koenigsegg? That's not just drama, that's something no one saw coming. What did Koenigsegg do that hit him so hard? Was it a rivalry meltdown? A shocking confession? Or maybe a secret deal gone wrong? Whatever it is, you'll want to stay right here, because what he said about Koenigsegg changes everything. And trust me, the last 30 seconds of this video will leave you speechless. It all really kicked off around 2005, back when the world was still getting used to the idea that a road-legal car could hit airplane-like speeds. Koenigsegg, the ambitious underdog from Sweden, threw the first real punch when their CCR clocked an insane 241 mph, knocking the legendary McLaren F1 off its throne. People were shocked. Like, who even was Koenigsegg? This small company out of Ängelholm was suddenly a serious contender. But before they could even catch their breath and pop the champagne, Bugatti came through like, "Oh, you thought that was fast?" and dropped the Veyron like a mic, shattering that record in the same year. And that, right there, was the spark. The gloves were off. From that moment on, it was game on. Bugatti, backed by the mammoth that is the Volkswagen Group, had resources most car makers could only dream of. They weren't just building cars, they were building luxury weapons of speed with more power than some private jets. But then there was Koenigsegg, scrappy and fearless, with Christian von Koenigsegg at the helm, a guy who basically bet everything on engineering wizardry and making things nobody had seen before. While Bugatti was all about brute force and silky French luxury, Koenigsegg was in the lab inventing transmissions that didn't need gears and cars with doors that opened like futuristic wings. One can only imagine how it would feel being in that meeting room. Let's build something that makes the laws of physics feel insecure. That's basically the vibe. And over the years, they've gone back and forth like a high-stakes tennis match played with nitroglycerin. One of the juiciest moments? Oh, that was in 2017. Bugatti decided to flex a bit and showed off their Chiron in just under 42 seconds. Naturally, they made a whole thing about it, released a limited edition Chiron 42, had press coverage, hats on the back, the whole 9 yards. But Koenigsegg? They didn't issue a press release. They brought receipts. The Agera RS came storming in and casually beat the record by 5.5 seconds. Like, mic drop? No biggie. Isn't that surprising? And get this. When Koenigsegg took their Agera RS to the Nevada desert and averaged 277.9 mph for a production car speed run, it was such a "you have got to be kidding me" moment. That number didn't just beat Bugatti's Veyron Super Sport, it obliterated it. And just when you thought the dust had settled, they went head-to-head again. Bugatti rolled out the Chiron Super Sport, this beast with 1.578 horsepower, and Koenigsegg pulled up with the Jesko Attack, a car that's only pushing 1,280 horsepower but weighs way less. And guess what? Despite the horsepower gap, the Jesko matched the Chiron's quarter-mile time of 9.6 seconds. Like, how do you even explain that? Less power, lighter weight, but neck-and-neck performance. That's some real David versus Goliath energy. But here's the thing. This isn't just about speed records or flexing horsepower. It's about two completely different visions for what a hypercar should be. Bugatti leans into heritage, opulence, and that old-school charm mixed with monstrous performance. It's like wearing a tuxedo while bench-pressing a freight train. Meanwhile, Koenigsegg is the rebellious genius in sneakers, always looking for the next rule to break or system to reinvent. They've got stuff like the light-speed transmission that doesn't even shift like a normal gearbox. It's basically magic. And isn't that the best part? This rivalry isn't just for show. It matters. It pushes boundaries. Every time one of them makes a move, the other responds with something even crazier. And we, the car lovers, the dreamers, the Sunday YouTube binge watchers of car documentaries, we get to witness that magic unfold. Without this tug of war, we probably wouldn't have seen half the insane tech that's now trickling down into regular cars. Like, who would have thought 10 years ago that hybrid tech from these hypercars would end up influencing your everyday sedan? Wild, right? At the end of the day, this Bugatti versus Koenigsegg saga is more than just a car story. It's like a live-action science experiment mixed with a heavyweight boxing match, sprinkled with some drama and a whole lot of hold my beer energy. Whether you're Team Bugatti with their iconic W16 engine and luxurious flair, or you ride for Koenigsegg with their jaw-dropping innovation and featherweight agility, this rivalry is what keeps the hypercar world spinning, hearts racing, and engineers losing sleep in the best way possible. So yeah, when people talk about car rivalries, most will think Ferrari versus Lamborghini, Ford versus Chevy, or BMW versus Mercedes. But those are spicy. Bugatti versus Koenigsegg? That's nuclear. And it's not slowing down anytime soon. Can you even imagine what their next cars are gonna do? Buckle up, because this race is far from over. The moment Bugatti's CEO finally spoke out. Well, for months, everyone in the car scene had been feeling this electric kind of tension, you know? Like the kind of tension where something big is about to happen, but no one wants to say it out loud. And then, boom, Bugatti's CEO allegedly finally broke the silence. And let me tell you, it was a moment. I mean, this wasn't just your regular polished, PR-approved type of statement. No, this one had real emotion in it. Like, it was even alleged that the CEO's voice literally cracked at one point. Can you imagine a Bugatti executive showing feelings in public? It was like watching someone who's always kept their cool suddenly start unraveling, and the world just sat there with popcorn in hand. So here's what pushed him over the edge. Because honestly, Bugatti had been playing the silent game for years, never directly calling out any competitors, always acting like the grown-up in the room. But then came Koenigsegg, and they didn't just step into the room. They kicked the door down. First, they showed off this crazy new free valve tech. Now, I'm not a mechanical engineer or anything, but basically they figured out a way to ditch traditional camshafts and make engines run smarter, cleaner, and way more efficient. Sounds mind-blowing, right? But they didn't stop there. Oh no! Next thing you know, they announced a new hybrid system that's 30% lighter than anything else out there. Like, come on, who does that? And then the mic drop moment? The Jesko Absolute's top speed run. That car didn't just break records, it obliterated them. And here's the best part. It totally called into question Bugatti's whole claim to fame. You know how Bugatti has always been like, we're the fastest, period? Well, not anymore. Koenigsegg came through and basically said, we'll take that crown, thanks. So yeah, Bugatti couldn't keep quiet after that. They had to say something. Their silence would have looked like surrender. So, back to how the resignation allegedly went down. The CEO steps up for a press conference that they clearly threw together in a hurry. He starts off all buttoned up and diplomatic, talking about healthy competition and all that usual corporate fluff. But then the mask slips. You could hear the emotion. When he mentioned Koenigsegg's record-breaking run, his voice cracked. And it wasn't just a technical acknowledgement, it felt personal, like the vibe was, we see them, but do they really belong in the real world? Which, if you ask me, sounded a lot like shade dressed up as skepticism. But wait, that's not even the wildest part. He goes on to say three things that honestly left people's jaws on the floor. First, he straight up admitted that Bugatti underestimated Koenigsegg. Like, no dancing around it, he said it plain. That's not something you hear from a top exec every day. Then, out of nowhere, he dropped the bombshell that there were some high-level Bugatti development projects that got cancelled. Projects that, had they been allowed to continue, could have maybe gone head-to-head with Koenigsegg's breakthroughs. I mean, talk about regrets. And finally, and this was the real tea, he kind of threw Volkswagen Group under the bus. Not directly, of course, but he hinted hard that Bugatti wasn't getting the resources they needed, which felt like a quiet way of saying, hey, our parent company kinda left us hanging. Now, as you can imagine, the automotive world exploded. People were shook. Car magazines plastered the speech all over their covers. One even called it the day Bugatti's armor cracked, which honestly sounds like something out of a superhero movie. And car nerds everywhere were glued to their screens, dissecting every single word. Analysts started speculating like mad. Was Bugatti in trouble? Was there some kind of power struggle behind the scenes? Was this the beginning of a new era where Koenigsegg officially takes over the throne? And then, of course, the stock market had to chime in. Bugatti's stock went on this wild roller coaster ride in the next 48 hours, up, down, sideways, because investors were suddenly unsure. Is Bugatti still the safe bet it used to be? Or is the magic starting to fade? Meanwhile, all the other car brands just sat back and watched the fireworks. Most of them stayed quiet, probably because they didn't want to get caught in the crossfire, but McLaren's CEO did speak up. And honestly, his comment was kinda sweet. He said he appreciated Bugatti's honesty. Like, in a world full of filtered press statements and corporate jargon, it was refreshing to hear someone speak from the heart, even if it was messy and kind of desperate. But you know what's interesting? Despite all this, there's still this sense that Bugatti might bounce back. I mean, they're Bugatti. They've been down before and found ways to pull off miracles. But the message was clear. The game has changed. Koenigsegg isn't just nipping at their heels anymore. They're sprinting past them. And now Bugatti has to decide, are they going to catch up? Or are they going to keep making excuses? I don't know about you, but I'm dying to see what happens next. Will Bugatti come back swinging with a new innovation no one saw coming? Or will this be remembered as the moment the crown officially changed hands? Either way, it's the most exciting the hypercar world has been in years. Don't you just love a little high-octane drama? He built his legacy around horsepower, elegance, and unmatched speed, but now the Bugatti CEO is walking away, in tears. And guess whose name slipped out during his emotional exit? Yep, Koenigsegg. What did he say? Why now? And why does it feel like there's a whole other story hiding beneath those tears? Could Koenigsegg have outplayed Bugatti in a way we weren't supposed to know about? Or is this all part of something even bigger? You're going to want to watch this one all the way through, because the real twist doesn't show up until the very end. Behind the resignation. When someone suddenly steps down from a big job, everyone's like, "Whoa, what happened?" And then the headlines just run with the most dramatic version possible. That's kind of what went down with the Bugatti CEO's resignation. To most people watching from the outside, it probably just looked like an emotional moment that spiraled a bit too far, especially after those wild public jabs at Koenigsegg. But oh, best believe that alleged press conference. That was just the tip of a very icy, very expensive iceberg. Behind all the cameras, flashing lights, and social media frenzy, there was a whole lot of messy boardroom drama, internal pressure, and high-level corporate chess games going on. Like something straight out of a high-stakes Netflix series, if we're being honest. Let's start with the stuff that really caused the walls to shake. What was going on inside Bugatti? Apparently, there were major disagreements between the big guys at Bugatti and their parent company, Volkswagen Group. And not the small kind of disagreements either. We're talking full-on strategic battles. Can you imagine trying to lead a luxury car brand while constantly butting heads with your corporate overlords? Sounds exhausting, right? And this wasn't the first time something like this happened either. Remember Dr. Thomas Beecher? He walked away too, and mainly because he couldn't see eye to eye with VW's then CEO, Martin Winterkorn. Beecher wanted Bugatti to move towards something a bit more approachable, like a car that wasn't over €1 million, that more people, well, rich people, could actually buy. But VW wasn't having it. So yeah, those boardroom tensions weren't new. They'd been bubbling under the surface for years. But that's just one side of the story. The other side? The public stuff. Oh boy, the CEO's comments about Koenigsegg, those definitely didn't help. They came off as way too emotional, and not in a passionate, visionary leader way. More like, "Are you okay, sir?" kind of emotional. And when you're leading a brand like Bugatti, where everything is supposed to be sleek, polished, and borderline untouchable, going off script like that? Huge red flag. You know how companies always want their leaders to be robotic and perfect and basically say nothing controversial? Well, he broke that golden rule. And once that press conference made headlines, the higher-ups at VW probably started sweating bullets. Like, how do you even spin that into a positive? Then, as if the whole situation wasn't shaky enough, there was the shadow of previous scandals still lurking in the air. Think back to Maurizio Parlato, Bugatti's former COO in the Americas. That man straight up admitted to taking nearly $3 million in kickbacks and dodging over $1 million in taxes. Can you believe that? Even though that wasn't tied to the CEO's current drama, it definitely painted the whole leadership team in a sketchy light. It's kind of like when your cousin messes up at Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago, but your whole family still gives you side-eye whenever anything remotely awkward happens. Same energy. And if you trace the steps leading up to the resignation, it all starts to make this weird, messy kind of sense. First, There were those product strategy arguments. Should Bugatti stay ultra-exclusive or branch out just a little bit? Then came the questionable public comments, followed by whispers and grumbles from inside the company. People started doubting decisions. Morale probably dipped. And finally, that press conference? That was the straw that snapped the camel's back in half. It was a textbook violation of what corporate communications departments live to prevent. What's shocking is how this whole thing mirrors other big automotive shakeups. Like when Winterkorn stepped down from Volkswagen after the emissions scandal. That wasn't just about one bad decision. It was the culmination of so many things going wrong at once. Same vibe here. And of course, when they finally made the announcement, it came wrapped in the usual PR fluff. Bugatti's president, Wolfgang Durheimer, said the outgoing executive did outstanding work and made major contributions. Which sounds nice, sure. But doesn't it always sound a little too nice when something is clearly off? It's like when your friend breaks up with their longtime partner and insists it was mutual, but you just know someone got blindsided. In the end, the resignation wasn't just about a single outburst or some poorly chosen words about a rival brand. It was about deeper stuff. It was years of tension, conflicting visions for the future, past mistakes, catching up with the present, and the harsh spotlight of public scrutiny making everything worse. It was like a storm that had been brewing forever. And finally, it just broke. So, while everyone was busy zooming in on that one press conference and making memes, the real story was way more layered. It was about power struggles, corporate politics, and the impossibility of staying calm under pressure when the stakes are that high. Makes you wonder, how many other big-name execs are smiling for the cameras while everything's crumbling behind closed doors? What did Koenigsegg do to make this legend walk away from his empire? Was it a final jab? A painful truth? Or something deeper? One thing's for sure. What he revealed will leave gearheads and casual fans equally stunned. Stay till the very end, because trust me, this isn't just about cars anymore. It's about what happens when you're beaten at your own game. Koenigsegg's response and rising influence. While everyone was all worked up over the emotional storm brewing at Bugatti, Christian von Koenigsegg, cool as ever, just stood there like a rock in the middle of a hurricane. You know that kind of quiet confidence some people have? That's Christian through and through. When a group of reporters allegedly swarmed him for a juicy reaction, hoping he'd maybe throw some shade or get pulled into the drama, he just smiled, literally smiled, and said, "We focus on building extraordinary cars, not on what others say about us." And that was it. No drama, no digs, no grandstanding. Just pure, unbothered class. I mean, how often do you see that these days? Especially in an industry that thrives on rivalry and headlines. But he didn't stop there. Oh no. Later on, at the Geneva Motor Show, when the spotlight was still burning bright and people were hanging on to every word he said, he hadn't expanded a bit more. He could have gloated. He could have said, "Look at us, we're dominating," and nobody would have blamed him. But instead, he took a moment to give Bugatti their flowers, acknowledging their historical importance while gently making it clear that Koenigsegg is simply built different. Not better in a brash way, but different in a way that speaks volumes without ever raising its voice. Isn't that the kind of energy we all want to carry in life? Now here's where it gets seriously interesting. Let's talk about how Koenigsegg is quietly rewriting the entire rulebook on what a hypercar even is, because they're not out here trying to flex the biggest engine or slap on the most horsepower like it's a pissing contest. No, Koenigsegg's all about precision, about balance, about the power-to-weight ratio. And if that sounds too nerdy, just think of it this way. It's not about how big the beast is, it's about how efficiently and beautifully it moves. While the Bugatti Chiron comes in at a massive 4,400 pounds, basically a tank with a rocket strapped to it, Koenigsegg's models, like the Jesko or the Regera, are featherweights by comparison, floating around 3,100 pounds. That's a whole 1,300-pound difference. Can you imagine what that does on a twisty road? It's the difference between a bulldozer and a ballet dancer, and yet they both have similar power. Isn't that kind of insane? But wait, there's more. Like, this isn't just about shaving off weight or putting a shiny badge on a fast car. Koenigsegg is literally dropping innovations that are changing the entire game. Take free valve, for instance. It's this interesting camless engine tech that gives you total control over valve timing, like something out of a sci-fi movie. Then there's direct drive, which totally eliminates the need for a traditional transmission in the Regera. No gears shifting up and down, just pure, seamless power. And let's not even get started on the Koenigsegg Light Speed Transmission, LST. It's a 9-speed multi-clutch beast that somehow doesn't even need synchronizers. How does that even work? And more importantly, why aren't more manufacturers doing stuff like this? The truth is, while a lot of big car brands are just fine-tweaking old formulas, slapping on new paint, adding a few more horses, or making their grills even bigger, Koenigsegg is quietly in the lab cooking up future tech that makes the rest of the industry look kinda stuck. You get the feeling that Christian isn't in it for the clout or the cash grab. He's in it because he loves this stuff, like really lives and breathes it. He's the kind of guy who probably sketches engine diagrams on napkins at dinner. And you know what? That kind of passion shows. So when you see someone like that, someone who doesn't get rattled by rival CEOs crying on stage or flinging subtle insults, you kind of have to respect it. Not just because he's winning, but because he's doing it his way. Quietly, intelligently, and with a kind of quiet swagger that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Isn't that the most badass thing ever? Anyway, in a world full of noise and ego, Christian von Koenigsegg is out here being the calm, collected genius who lets the cars and the tech do all the talking. And let's be real, that's the kind of legacy that lasts. Public perception shifts toward Koenigsegg. Now, for the longest time, people used to put Bugatti on this golden pedestal. The name alone had that rich old-school luxury vibe, like pulling out a dusty bottle of vintage wine from the back of a mahogany cabinet. It was always Bugatti this, Bugatti that, like it was the ultimate king of hypercars. And honestly, who could blame them? I mean, the Chiron? That thing looked like it came straight from a Bond movie and whispered, "I cost more than your house." But now? Oh, the tables are turning. Slowly, quietly, and kind of beautifully, Koenigsegg has started taking over the conversation. Not with loud fanfare, but with that sleek, confident kind of innovation that makes people stop and say, "Wait, what did they just build?" You can really feel the shift when you're scrolling through car forums or hanging out in those deep Reddit rabbit holes. People aren't just drooling over top speed numbers anymore or swooning over how classy a car looks while parked in Monaco. No, they're getting more thoughtful, more curious. You'll see these threads pop up where folks are comparing the two brands, and more often than not, Koenigsegg is getting labeled as the innovator, the visionary. Like, they're not just building cars, they're rewriting the rules. Have you seen what they're doing with the Gemera? A 4-seater hybrid that feels like something out of a sci-fi movie. But it's real, and it runs like a beast. And then there's the Jesko, And that whole no gearbox setup they pulled off? It's bananas. And people love bananas when they're wrapped in carbon fiber and rocket science. Meanwhile, Bugatti, while still insanely impressive, kind of feels like that one rich uncle who always wears a three-piece suit and talks about the good old days. Like they've got heritage, refinement, elegance, all of that. But not everyone is wowed by that anymore, you know? It's like, cool, you have a long history, but what have you done for us lately? Koenigsegg, on the other hand, walks into the room wearing a leather jacket and says, "Watch this," then proceeds to defy the laws of physics. It's wild, and you can't help but root for them, right? Because they were the underdog not too long ago. Just this tiny Swedish company with a weird name most people couldn't pronounce. And now they're being called the future of car manufacturing? That's a plot twist no one saw coming. And maybe that's why people love them so much. There's this sense of scrappy genius behind everything they do. Now, what's really interesting, and honestly kind of juicy, is how this whole narrative shift really started taking shape during Bugatti's little leadership crisis. You remember that? Things were kind of shaky behind the scenes, and while they were trying to figure things out, Koenigsegg just kept pushing forward like a runaway train of brilliance. It's almost like Koenigsegg was saying, "While you guys are busy sorting your boardroom drama, we're going to go ahead and invent the next generation of propulsion technology." I mean, who wouldn't admire that kind of energy? It's not just about horsepower anymore. It's about pushing limits, reimagining what's even possible in a car. And if we're being real here, isn't that what makes a brand truly exciting? Not just being fast or fancy, but doing stuff that actually changes the game? Like, don't you kind of get chills when you think about how far Koenigsegg has come? From being that, oh, that's cute, but it's not a Bugatti brand, to being the one people now mention when they talk about innovation. Not just in supercars, but in tech, engineering, sustainability, everything. You just can't ignore them anymore. So yes, the narrative has shifted in a big way. It's no longer the old storyline of Bugatti versus that ambitious little Swedish company. No, now it's the established innovator versus the one stuck polishing its trophies. And that says so much about where the industry is heading and where people's excitement is landing. Honestly, if you were to ask someone today which brand feels more like the future, more like the kind of place where the next great leap is going to happen, you already know what they'd say. It's Koenigsegg, every single time. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.